a book which was very influential on me, and I never heard anybody else ever mention it, was a book by Rockcliffe called Illusions and Delusions of the Supernatural and the Occult. This was a 19th century book which I, as a kid, got in a Dover reprint. And it was in a wonderful era where the study of anomalies was still young, and so this book had everything poured in together, from Mesmer's ectoplasm to people who had tumors that they carried around in wheelbarrows, to birds that did advanced arithmetic, so forth and so on. And it was a very much from the point of view of Victorian rationalism. And it also mentioned psychedelics. It was what it really was a category of edges, and or a catalog of edges, I'm sorry. And it's only then in the subsequent 35 years that Wunderkamera approach to illusion, and I assume you all know what I mean by that. I'm referring to the era before the rise of Linnaean natural science, when naturalists would simply fill cabinets with anomalous, fascinating, and strange objects. So the tarantulas might be mixed in with the chambered nautiluses, which might be stirred into the Zuni fetishes, which might be next to something else. Then later these Wunderkameras, these curiosity cabinets, as you would call them in English, gave way to Linnaean taxonomy. In the same way, over the past 100 years, I think the study of illusion and anomaly has attempted to rationalize itself. Spatial illusions are an entirely different family of illusory phenomena, and we all have encountered at some level, I imagine, the specially constructed environments that occur in behavioral psychology labs that trick you into thinking that the person in the foreground is smaller than the person in the background, and so forth and so on. These kinds of illusions are probably fairly trivial, except that they address perception. And when we get to psychedelics as a source of illusion, this is more important. Another of the great family of illusions are, in thinking about them, I called them ontological illusions, illusions of states of being, which may or may not, in fact, be reflected in reality. UFOs, Bigfoot, crop circles, the entire panoply of poltergeist phenomena, and this sort of thing, ontological illusions. And these are very interesting. I mean, one could give time to this alone, because there are persistent ontological illusions in the human sensorium, such as angels, elves, demons, jinns, afrits, nixies, and sprites, that crowd. And there are ontological illusions that seem somehow tied to the evolving modalities of the group mind. UFOs are an obvious example. I mean, aside from the fact that people have occasionally seen strange things in the sky, the UFO archetype really emerges in the late 40s with the Rainier lights, and then a whole set of taxonomic features of this particular brand of illusion coalesce. The silvery discs, the alien denizens with the cat eyes and the rubbery flesh, those same guys who give you unscheduled proctological examinations in the middle of the night. But notice that that particular taxonomic feature has been added recently through the assiduously careful scientific research of Strieber and company. So these things are a cattle mutilation is an interesting one, very confined in time and space. The crop circle thing, similarly. It's not that there aren't crop circles, but that what we have is essentially a pattern in an English wheat field, but then radiating out from that are the illusions of those who cast their gaze upon it, those who proclaim it, telluric communication, or particle beam research carried on by the Air Force, or in one version it was supposed that a particular crop circle had been decoded, found to be a lost Sumerian language, which when decoded said basically, don't stop here. It was essentially a no parking zone for time machines. They were saying, this entire century just maintain speed and, do not stop. Psychedelic illusions. Again, this is a related category but different from these ontological illusions. By illusion, I mean that these are confrontations with phenomena, an apparently subjective ground and an assumed rational observer, where then there is a more than ordinary amount of ambiguity. I mean, most of reality is illusory. It's just that we do each other the courtesy of not pointing this out. Actually you trace a very thin data path through the world, and most of what we assume without question, we have very little evidence for. I mean, something as simple as, like that Mount Everest is the highest mountain in the world. Well, first of all, very few people have ever seen it. I saw it, and because I saw it from a distance of about 500 miles, it looked quite small, and my own testimony as to whether it was the highest mountain in the world would be fairly unreliable. And besides, what does that mean anyhow, and how the hell do you figure it out? I mean, here we have one mountain in the Himalayas and another in Bolivia, and you're telling me you know which is the higher mountain? It must rest on a whole bunch of weird and fishy assumptions resting on even shakier data. So, and that's just the question of the highest mountain in the world. Give or, leave alone the state of your lover's heart, or your banker's for that matter. What's important about the psychedelic family of illusions is that they propel the entire issue of illusion to center stage, because they demonstrate that the assumed bedrock of quote-unquote ordinary perception is in fact no bedrock at all. It's simply a very soft dwell point somewhere in the mysteries of metabolism, and the consciousness, whatever its relationship to the brain, is spectacularly affected by the perturbation of the physical brain by endogenously introduced pseudo-neurotransmitters of some sort. And to my mind, this is very interesting. Alexander Shulgin has secured in his work that you can take a molecule that is completely inactive, and by moving one atom to a different place on the ring, you can change this into an active, compound. Now, it seems to me you could hardly have a neater demonstration of the quantum mechanical foundation of consciousness.